All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Everybody, good morning. Obviously, just want to thank everybody for coming out. Before we kind of dig into the topic for today, just want to do a quick housekeeping item, and we have a couple announcements. So, a couple things is we are going to be starting in August what we're calling a senior downsizing club. So we're going to launch it in August, and it's specifically designed for those who currently own a home and plan to move in the next 1 to 3 years, and they want help getting organized and taking action instead of feeling stuck. So basically, the overall goal of this club is accountability and support. So the plan is, I'm still kind of coming up with the plan. It's more of an idea right now, but the idea is more like we'll meet monthly and however often the group wants to meet. But it's basically just to encourage one another to check off like real life tasks, like we're going to get these things done in the next month or 2 weeks or whatever, and just help make the overall transition from either downsizing into a smaller home or transitioning into a senior living community. So the overall goal is just to make it feel less overwhelming and to actually take actionable items to get things done. Obviously, this would be the first time that I've done this, so it would be like you guys would be the test run, I guess, if that makes sense. So, but yeah, overall, the heart behind the whole thing is just to provide value and make the future move less stressful and smoother. Second item is we are going to be doing a community tour day, and that's going to happen on Wednesday, September 10th. So I'm basically calling it a field trip day. So we're going to go visit Park Center. We're going to go visit both of our education partners. So we're going to go, and they're both senior living communities. One of them is Park Center, and that's Lisa, who's in the back there, and their community is located in Newton. And then Hearthstone and Montessa is normally here, but she had a grandbaby is being born currently, I believe. So that's where she's at. But they are located in Pella. So we're going to plan to go to both of those communities on the same day on September 10th. We'll start from here. I don't have all the details for this ironed out either. But we'll all leave from here on a bus, I believe. Go to Park Center, do breakfast, community tour, just learn more about what they have to offer, and then we'll drive down to Newton, or to Pella, to Hearthstone, and do the same thing, and possibly grab like a little bite to eat or something there, and then we'll end back in Monroe at the gathering place. So those are the two bigger announcements, and then another announcement that Lisa wanted me to touch on was, and feel free to follow up after the event to grab more info, but they are doing what's called a Bloom Bar, and that's on Tuesday, June 24th from 2 to 3:30 p.m., and that's happening at Park Center. And yeah, it's a floral arrangement, take-home floral arrangement that you can make. So if you want more info, she'll be able to give you more info on that. I believe should be all good to go on that. So for today's topic, we are obviously talking about the title of it is Don't Get Tricked 101 Scam Prevention. So I just have a super quick 30 or 60-second video about that. And maybe
more Americans than ever rely on alarm systems, gates, or doorbell cameras to help protect their families. But statistically, you are now more likely to be the victim of theft online than a physical break-in at home. A new report from the FBI reveals that Americans lost more than $10 billion last year to online scams and digital fraud. People in their 30s, who are among the most connected online, file the most complaints. But we were surprised to learn the group that loses the most money to scammers is seniors. Tonight, we will show you how cyber con artists are using artificial intelligence, widely available apps, and social engineering to target our parents and grandparents.
The story will continue in a moment.
Go. Okay, so I did a little bit of research, obviously, prior to this. Just researching about, the top scams that are currently happening in Iowa. And I actually took this quote from the Iowa Attorney General's office. So I'm just going to read it here real quick. So they said, this was as of 2024. So they said, last year, the Iowa Attorney General's Office Consumer Protection Division received over 3,900 complaints covering more than 30 different industries and scam categories. In 2024, they saw a big spike in scams like social media, account hacking, and imposter scams, especially ones where victims were tricked into sending money through cryptocurrency ATMs. So then I was like, I basically just tried to figure out what the top 10 scams were in Iowa in 2024 based on just that data that the Iowa Attorney General's office provided. So number 10 is credit and debit issues. 9, telemarketing fraud, tech support scams, landlord/tenant disputes. Number 6 was timeshare scams. 5, identity theft. 4 was auto-related complaints. Number 3 was online. Supposed to go. That's right. Online purchase issues, so like fake websites, misleading ads, or undelivered items. Number 2 is home improvement scams. So it's contractors who are actually going to your property, saying they're going to do this work. You pay them whatever their quote is on site, and then they basically just never show up. And then number 1 is fake imposter scams, imposter scams, which is like fake IRS, tech support, or family emergencies. So those were the top 10 that I found for that were in Iowa. So obviously today we have invited a panelist of local professionals to help us get ahead of these scams. So we will just go ahead and dive into that conversation. So I'll just go ahead and just have you all start out with just a 2, 3, 4 minute introduction about who you are, and we can go from there.
Hi, my name is Vicki Monaco. I'm the CEO of Life and Legacy Advisors. I'm an investment advisor representative. I'm also insurance licensed in the state of Iowa. So I help people with their retirement and estate planning. And I have heard stories firsthand of where people were trying to scam one of my clients, or they would call me and say, what do you think of this? So I hope to be able to add to the conversation today. I would encourage you all, with your own financial advisor, ask them, are you a fiduciary? Because that's an important thing. That means they're legally obligated to act in your best interests.
My name is Anthony Leon. I work with the County Attorney's Office here in Jasper County. My job primarily is as a criminal prosecutor. The cases that I work on include fraud cases, financial dependent adults, and elder abuse, as well as a bunch of other things. But for our office, when those cases come through, I'm usually the person that handles them. I hope to provide you guys today with information on what's kind of going on in our state and in our local communities, what I've seen over the last few years doing this work, and also some ways to hopefully identify some of these things before they get too far. And if you are finding yourself in one of those positions, what to do. Also identify some of the challenges that there are in criminal prosecutions and ways to sort of preserve the evidence of those cases and to work with law enforcement as well. Hopefully so that we can catch the people that are doing it, at the very least, protecting them from any further loss financially. I'm originally from Iowa. I went to Drake University for law school about 10 years ago, graduated. I've been here in Jasper County for about 6 years now. My wife and I live just outside of Newton. We have 2 kids. We consider this our community, and we work. My wife is a prosecutor in Des Moines, and we work really hard to really try to protect, folks from both physical abuse, but also just the rampant I really mean that rampant financial abuse that we see, fraud, and also just elder abuse and financial abuse even from their own family members. So a lot of things going on in the community, things that would be good to know about and to see the warning signs, and hopefully I can provide you some of that information.
Hi, I am Kira Lasby. I'm the investigation sergeant with Jasper County Sheriff's Office. I have worked in general crime investigations for the past 2 years. I been at Jasper County Sheriff's Office since 2020. Before that, I worked at Marshalltown Police Department. So I've been in law enforcement for a total of 8 years. A little bit about me. I specialize in sexual assault investigations, domestic assault investigations, anything, fraud, scams, really anything that takes a little bit longer term to investigate. Those are the investigations that I handle. Lead investigator, only investigator in general crime detectives. I am also on the Crisis Intervention Services Board, which is our victim advocate. So I am a big advocate for victim services and would be the go-to individual if anything comes up with victims and resources. Outside of that, I'm also on the Sexual Assault Forensic Response Committee with the Attorney General's Office. So it's just the Attorney General's Office with anything sex assault or victim services. Outside of that, I would be the go-to if there's any questions that come up for resources or information within the Sheriff's Office. Just be the one of contact.
Perfect. We'll actually follow up with you and just kind of starting out, just thinking about scam awareness in Jasper County, Polk County, Central Iowa. What types of scams are most common right now that you're seeing, just from your experience?
Sure. I would say one of the biggest ones that keeps on circulating and it has its own twist every time it comes through is the grandparent or family emergency scam. Whether it be individuals, keeping you on the phone and having you go to the bank to go grab money and send it through the mail, or sometimes it's a courier that comes through to pick it up. The latest twist would be they send an Uber driver to come and pick up the package, and then they would bring it to a remote location where the suspect actually gets the money. So there's so many different twists to it. If there's questions about or comments that you guys maybe have experienced, that one is common and it's been here since I've been in law enforcement. And there's not one group that are suspect to getting your money, but there's so many groups that go through. So that would be the top one that I've seen over and over again. Another big up-and-coming one is the online purchase scams. So, you see a great deal online and you go to click on it, you think you purchased something, but then all of a sudden you don't receive the items. So many of those are coming through, and especially with everybody utilizing the internet more and more, that's one thing that, anywhere from farming equipment to vehicles to smaller purchases, there's just so many online scams that are going through. Another recent one, I think that is just up and coming would be like check fraud scams, or just check fraud. So individuals going to and actually going to your mailboxes. So oftentimes people send checks in the mail. So depending on the time of year, these individuals go and steal items from just all envelopes, all mail in your mailboxes. If you have checks in there, they take the checks. They change the checks to address them to themselves, and then they cash the checks in large amounts. That's another big one. There is also the law enforcement department or warrant scam. So these are usually phone calls. They call you, they say you have a warrant, you have to turn yourself in or send this much money. There's no law enforcement agencies that's going to call you to tell you you have a warrant. And also, never would we request you to pay this amount of money over the phone. So Those are all the ones that I would say that those are the major ones going around these days.
And then I guess Anthony, just from a legal perspective, what types of scams are you seeing that actually lead to criminal charges? And are you seeing, persecution or whatever of that happen?
Yeah. So ultimately, what we charge can depend on all these different kinds of scams can lead to the same general bucket of charges. Theft is the most common charge that we make. We use the word fraud as a descriptor of what people are doing, but there's not actually a fraud charge in Iowa law. What there is there's theft, and there's different ways to do theft, to charge theft. We can charge theft simply by taking something like a pickpocket or a burglar or something. But also there's theft by misappropriation. That's where you entrust somebody with money for a certain purpose and they use it for a different purpose. There's theft by deception, and that's kind of what we think of in general as fraud. And actually, our legislature, one of the things that they did in the last, I would say 2 years, I think it went into effect last July, is they have added additional protections for theft of older individuals. They've enhanced the penalties. So if there's like a theft in the first degree in Iowa is any theft over $10,000, and that's a C felony, which is up to 10 years in prison. But if it occurs to someone who you should reasonably know is over the age of 60, then it goes up a penalty level. So it becomes a B felony, which is up to 25 years in prison. So it's the penalties are increased if the person that the scammer or the fraudster is preying on is an older individual. And so that's one of the ways that we can use the law on our side to help enforce or deter these things from happening. So theft is one of the big charges that we see because ultimately what people are trying to do is steal from you. They're using many different ways to do that. We're seeing romance scams where people target lonely individuals and pretend to be, like it's called catfishing, where they pretend to be someone else online who's a fake profile. Ultimately just to get some money, because eventually the attention that they're giving you will turn into an emergency for them and they need some money or something. They need to get somewhere really fast, or they need you to wire them some money. That would be a theft by deception. There's tech support, people calling saying, hey, I'm from Microsoft and I need to fix your computer. They get in, if you give them your information, they can get into your computer and they can get access to your accounts or your account information, and either sell that to someone else who then steals your money or steal it themselves. We also, Kira talked about the government impersonation, like the warrant scams and things, but there's also people posing as the IRS. I mean, I get these phone calls that leave voicemails and say they're from tax relief or IRS or whatever. Call and give us your information. I mean, the IRS doesn't do business that way. So those are warning signs for those things. Additionally, Facebook Marketplace can be a dangerous place for that too. Unless you know or can verify the person that you're talking to has the actual item, or if the deal seems too good to be true, then it usually is, or the item that you might be purchasing might be stolen itself, and you could be the one left holding the bag on that. So, we do prosecute a lot of that too, where people are in possession of stolen items. I know we did some warrants based off some Facebook thefts that turned out to be items that were from burglaries, and so that can lead us to prosecuting some people. But in the meantime, the way we find out is people get scammed and then bring it to our attention. It's like, that may not be something we can do much about, that loss. So yeah, there are lots of ways that we can prosecute fraud. Kira also mentioned the check fraud stuff that's been happening. Anytime someone changes a document without authorization or signs someone else's name, that's a forgery. If it's on money, then it's a felony forgery. If it's on some other document for legal relations, like a contract or something, it could be a misdemeanor forgery. But there are ways to as long as we can get a hold of those documents, as long as you preserve that stuff, there are ways to hopefully track those people down and start to build a case for prosecution.
I guess to follow up question.
Yeah.
I guess for the online scams, how long what does that time frame look like? Because I feel like tracing someone down online, I feel like it take a while.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of those things it's more about prevention, or it's about stopping it before it gets out of hand. Because a lot of times those folks are either out of the country, or they've used so many different layers of deception that getting to the root of it is nearly impossible. When we have people pretending to be, like the IRS, and they are calling you, they could be in India or in China, or, anywhere. I mean, they could be anywhere, and they have sophisticated ways of using artificial intelligence to change the way their voice sounds. That they can sound like they're from Iowa, right? And that you don't notice an accent or anything, and they can use internet tools. Unfortunately, a lot of the companies we do voluntarily give our information to turn around and sell that information. So our address, our purchasing history, even if you are part of Hy-Vee's rewards program, that information might be sold, washed of your name, but it might be sold to show, in our area, what people like to buy. And so then the scammers, if they can get a hold of that, will just target, and that will be what they're selling, right? Because it seems natural and normal to us, right? So it can be really hard, because eventually the subpoenas or the warrants that we send out through, the use of Cure's office, writing warrants, getting judges to sign them, sending them off to Google or whatever platform you're using, Facebook, they'll give us the information about where this is coming from, but oftentimes it leads to somewhere we can't reach them. So it's about getting in and stopping it from going further.
And then kind of just thinking about it more from a financial planning, estate planning perspective, are there any scams that you're seeing right now, just specifically targeting older adults, or just those handling estate planning?
Well, Medicare fraud is a big thing. So I would encourage you all, when you get your summary of benefits, look at it and make sure, are these services I actually received? If anybody calls and they're wanting to sell you something and say, oh, it's not going to cost you anything, what's your never give out your Medicare number. Okay, because that, millions and probably billions of dollars in Medicare fraud, and as taxpayers, we're all paying for it. So that is another big thing. As far as estate planning, I would encourage you all to have a trusted contact as your power of attorney, your financial power of attorney. There's some urban myth that says it's got to be my firstborn child or my oldest son that's going to be my financial power of attorney. And that's simply not true. It has to be somebody you inherently trust, that is going to act in your best interest. I have seen where people felt an obligation to, list, their oldest child, and maybe they, had a substance or alcohol problem or a gambling problem, and it legally can wipe you out. So always use a very trusted person. I would talk to your financial advisor and say, I give you permission to talk to one of my kids if you see something unusual. I'll share with you a true story. I had a client that called and wanted to make a large withdrawal, which was uncharacteristic. And I said, oh, sure, well, what's going on? Thought maybe he was getting a roof or replacing the windows. He's like, well, I'm getting a new car. And I know that the last time I talked to him, he told me he'd given up his keys, right? So I'm like, really? So I said, let me give you a call back. And I gave him a call back, and I said, no, asked him again. So, you'll need to come in, need to have you sign some paperwork. Why do you need the money? Oh, medical bills. And I had some concerns whether dementia was setting in. And I had been after him to do a financial power of attorney. In fact, I was calling my attorney saying, what can I do to help my client, because they have no financial power of attorney, and I think they're being a victim of a scam. Don't know what's going on, but I think something's going on. Fortunately, I got a phone call from his daughter a couple days later. Incidentally, I was kind of stalling on letting him withdraw money. I mean, it's his money, but I suspected something was going on. I get a call from his daughter. And I said, gosh, she's like, well, my dad's being scammed. We're seeing a lawyer so that we can get the financial power of attorney. I said, good, call me as soon as you do. So we have a family powwow. Well, the home that had been paid for, he had gone and got a home equity line of credit. Money was all gone. Fortunately, like I said, we kind of stalled it. He didn't do any, withdrawals out of their investment accounts. But, I even talked to the bank where he was banking. We were on a conference call, and she's like, oh, while we're sitting here, his phone is blown up from these scammers saying we need more money, we need more money. And we're all telling him, change your phone number. And a week later, I called, and I said, thought you were going to change your phone number. He's like, yeah, but what if they get a hold of, they need to get a hold of me. This was all on some lottery prize thing. And that if he sent in money, he was going to be getting some big prize. There is nothing. So, specifically targeting people, especially when they get to a diminished capacity and they don't even know they don't know the right questions to ask. So include people in your circle that you can trust, that can kind of, do the litmus test. Is this real? So lots of things, targeting particularly seniors. The Medicare one is a big one though.
Just out of curiosity, if you have been scammed or felt like you've received a scam before, can you raise your hand?
Oh, I have.
Yeah, so, and I have too. So it affects all of us. So
I'm going to jump in with one more that is more recent and becoming very prevalent. People calling, they have your credit card number, they have your name, you have your address, and they just need to verify that, your PIN number. Now, even though you're like, oh, they must be legit, this must be the credit card company because they have all my information. If you receive a text message, like a fraud alert, call us and it's got a phone number. No, you go back to the phone number on the back of your card and you call that number. Because in that text message, they will give you, and they will answer Citibank credit card services. And that's when, they collect additional information. And that's not targeted just to seniors, that's to everybody. But you really have to safeguard your personal information.
Yep. We'll go back to Kira, but when I guess when I'm like I'm a realtor, so when I'm in a real estate transaction or whatever, I always try to put myself in the other person's shoes. So it's like, how can I put myself in the scammer's shoes to figure out like how can we get ahead of them, basically. So I guess Kira, how are scammers most often reaching people, whether it's like phone call, text messages, direct mail, Facebook Messenger, email?
The answer is yes. Anything you can imagine, any platform you can imagine, that's how they're reaching out. I would say most commonly would be phone calls or emails, but more so we're seeing social media, AI, and we're seeing email phishing, spams via email, really anything, even as much as apps that you add on your phone that they're able to scam you through and get access on your phone, get access on your computers, really just anything you can imagine. So getting ahead of them would just be being cautious in everything and just being suspicious of everything. I've got 5 phone calls yesterday from who knows. But text messages, I think we recently, even just yesterday, put out something on the sheriff's office, so call the sheriff's office website, because we typically notify the most recent scams or things that are up and coming. So people are receiving text messages, but really just be cautious of everything that you open. Don't open any links. And I think that's another question down the road, so we can move on to that, but any platform is the answer.
Yep. I think one tip that I heard the other day, I feel like it was from someone here, but I can't remember who exactly. But for all of their mail that they get, if they don't know what it is, they just put it in another. Basically, they set it in another box, and their children or someone comes over and looks at it for them, just to verify to make sure that it's legit. So, I think it was some here, but I'm not sure. But that was one little trick that you can do, I guess, to sort through mail. Anthony, if someone unwillingly actually helps a scammer by wiring money or mailing a package or going to Walmart and doing the crypto ATM deal, what would be the legal implications for the person that actually does it and or for the scammer?
Sure. Yeah. So if you have been the victim of a scam, that's the way law enforcement is going to approach that. Like if you unwittingly, are providing information. Let's say we've had people who have been caretakers for their parents and have been scammed out of their parents' money because they think that the scam is targeting them as the caretaker and they're going to help them get into some senior living facility or some, have some business proposition for them that will help their retiring parent, so that happens, but it's not like we're going to look at that person, that caretaker person, as necessarily, a thief, if they truly are unwillingly are being scammed, right? But we need to use that as law enforcement, we need to use that to try to figure out what happened and who's actually at fault for the scam, if we can, and hopefully recover some of that if possible. A lot of times it's not possible, unfortunately. Typically the person getting scammed is treated as a victim. Now there are some things as someone who, if you are the victim of the scam, to watch out for. Number one, it becomes very hard as the prosecutor in a criminal case to go after a scammer if during the scam the person who's being scammed realizes it and doesn't report it right away, or instead of reporting it tries to negotiate. That moment is going from victim of a crime to now negotiating to try to return some of that money, or giving the scammer an ultimatum, things like that, or bargaining with them. That can turn it into a civil situation where now you could be left on your own to try to recover that funds. Because if it's a civil situation, then I can't prosecute it as a theft. So if you say, okay, fine, just give me back $200 of the $1,000, now you've made a contract with this scammer, and it can be really hard for me to take that as a criminal case. I mean, you've heard me say in some of these situations that you brought me, hey, that's turned into more of a civil situation, and I can't take it. I can't bring a charge. There may be ways that you can recover it civilly with an attorney and sue, but that's going to cost more of your own money to do, and it may not be worth it. So one thing to do is to preserve those communications, keep track of what happened in the scam, but don't engage with the scammer. In fact, as soon as you realize or feel that you've been a victim of something like that, just stop all communication with the scammer. Bring it to the attention of law enforcement, or bring it to the attention of someone you trust, so that they can do that for you. Start to provide those documents to someone who can help you, as opposed to trying to do the self-help, because the self-help can really lead you down the wrong road, or it can lead you deeper into the scam, because they have ways of trying to say, well, okay, now you're threatening me, I'm going to go to law enforcement, and now you find yourself in a law enforcement scam where they've got someone else, or even them pretending to be someone else, threatening you now to give them more money, or they're going to pursue you for some kind of, and another thing is that no one wants to be scammed. No one wants to admit that they've fallen for something like this, especially, if it's a sensitive topic. And so, we all raised our hand at the beginning of this, and, everyone in this room raised their hand. So it can be anyone. I mean, they target everyone, but, only adults are the people with the resources. You've worked your whole lives to be in a situation where you have retirement or you have investments, and that's what they're after. They might target kids on Xbox or whatever to get access to gift cards or something, but those are small time. when they target you, they're targeting thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. You know, they're targeting full retirements. They know you have access to credit. You know, so coming to law enforcement, you're not going to be. It's not about being humiliated. It's not about you know shame. It's about trying to stop it. So stop talking to the scammers if you find yourself in that position. Bring it to law enforcement to see if something can be done.
Nikki, what would you say is that you've seen as a tactic or some tactics that scammers use that people might overlook, but it actually seems legitimate?
Oh yeah, there's so many ways they can make it look legitimate. Like I said before, a text message, with a fraud alert, with their phone number, you call them and they have some of the information. Now, how many of you have ever been notified that your information's been leaked out because of a security breach? Yeah, we all have. Our information is out there. So if you receive anything in the mail, email, text, telling you to call a number, do not go to your own information, whether it's a number on the back of your card or, if it's from a bank or credit union, you may initiate the contact. Go to their websites to make sure that it's the right phone number. There's just so many ways they could try and make it look legitimate. One of them, a telemarketing one, a lot of times they will be saying they're selling calendars for local law enforcement and, try and get a donation over the phone. A lot of times they will try and put themselves with an affinity group. Okay, so you feel somehow connected or that it must be legit. Oh, it's local law enforcement or it's, something through some, community type event. And of course, we're all community minded. We want to be, good corporate citizens and things like that. Just go about it the right way. When you go online, first Google it and make sure that it's a legit site, that it's the official site of whoever you're trying to do it. Whenever you are trying to buy anything online, make sure that it's a secure site and that it's legit.
Yeah, I guess just to follow up on that, what would you say would be just a few best practices to avoid falling for financial scams? Just especially when it comes to like your work as far as financial planning, estate planning. You mentioned HELOC earlier, just to help people avoid that. And I know one thing you mentioned was, obviously having someone that you trust that's around you that you can always take something to. I guess any other thoughts around that?
Yeah, again, having your circle and your power of attorney be somebody you absolutely trust. Your power of attorney could be a family member. It doesn't have to be. Your power of attorney, you can jump in by this. Your power of attorney can be immediately enacted, or it could be just upon your disability. But again, you're going to have a doctor's note to prove disability, and that may be, the scam's already happened. And that may be what initiates, getting the POA in place, the power of attorney. So if it's somebody you truly trust, have it be enacted now. In working with a financial advisor or, anybody insurance related, always make the check payable to whoever you're going to get your statements from. Never make the check payable to your broker, your insurance agent, to them personally. If it's an investment account and Charles Schwab is going to be who you get, that's who you make your check payable to. Never make it payable to your financial advisor or insurance agent. Those are just some really important things.
Yep. Anthony, you kind of already touched on this on that previous question, but what are some legal protections available to scam victims, and/or what steps should someone take immediately after realizing they've been scammed? And you kind of already touched on it a little bit.
Yeah, sure. The step you should immediately take is stop dealing with them. Just you can cut them off cold turkey. You don't owe them anything. You don't. They obviously are trying to pretend that they have some either power over you or some connection, or if it's them scamming you over a family member in trouble and they need money to get them out, things like that. But obviously, there's that emotional aspect to it. But the most important thing would be to just stop, get verification, or talk to law enforcement if someone's got you in their sort of grips, right? But there are other ways, other protections that can help after that initial step. I was elder abuse laws. I talked about those earlier, about the sort of increased penalties and the ways that my office can prosecute people that have scammed others. But in that process, at the end, if someone is convicted of a fraud or an elder theft or something, there's a process called restitution where they can be ordered by the court to pay back or restore those funds. That process is, of course, not done overnight. If the money's gone, even from them, then it's an order that can be enforced, but you can't squeeze blood from a stone, so it's hard sometimes if the money's gone. But you can get that order, and that can save you the trouble of having to go to like a civil court and sue them to get your money back. So that's this one remedy. If your identity is stolen, there's something that the Iowa Attorney General's office helps facilitate. It's called the Identity Theft Passport. And what that does is it gives you that sort of general letter from law enforcement saying, my identity has been stolen. I've proven it. And so when you go and try to fix your bank accounts, when you go to, it can save you a lot of the red tape steps of trying to prove to these other people that these weren't your transactions, that this wasn't you, that you didn't make this insurance application or you didn't make this loan application, so that you can sort of start to get your affairs back in order. It doesn't necessarily get you your money back. Credit card companies often will refund false or fraudulent charges, but debit account charges or bank account charges don't often have those fraud protections. But this is a way to sort of identify through the state that you have had your identity stolen, that you aren't the one doing these fraudulent transactions, and it's something, it's like an official document to help you navigate that process. There's an application, and law enforcement also can take that report and then sign that letter as well. You can also report fraud to the credit bureaus. There are 3 national credit bureaus, that's Experian, TransUnion, Equifax. If you report that your identity has been stolen or that there's been fraud on your accounts, they can freeze your accounts. They can help create tools to allow you to later access your credit again without having those freezes or in different ways so that the scammers can. So you're not just opening it back up if the scammer already has access. And then the Attorney General's office, in addition to the local prosecutors like Jasper County Attorney's Office, each county has their own county attorney. The Attorney General's office covers the whole state, and they have a division called the Consumer Protection Division. They have their own investigators. They investigate businesses. They investigate fraudulent practices. They investigate these kinds of scams, lottery scams. They run the whole gamut, and they work with a lot closer with like the FBI and federal agencies when there's organized crime happening, like when there's interstate or statewide credit card skimming device scams or lottery fraud scams, things like that. They can really come in and help, and they can be a great resource for people, and they have tools set up. They also have the Crime Victim Assistance Division, which does not reimburse crime victims for property damage. So if you're a victim of theft and your money is gone, but they do help reimburse for things like transportation because of needing to go to court. If it's like you're a witness in a criminal case, they will help. They have a fund for helping people put up security devices, things like that. So there are some resources available, and those would be through the Attorney General's office. I have a handout in the back that includes the Consumer Protection Division's contact information on it.
Perfect. And just kind of staying along with that topic and just putting ourselves in the scammer shoes and just thinking about like the red flags. I guess, Kira, what would you say are the most common things to kind of look out for to help us prevent ourselves from getting into an actual scam?
Sure. Biggest one is if it's too good to be true, it is. Outside of that, oftentimes scammers try and rush you. So just know that if that you can only catch the cell if you purchase within the next 20 minutes. Typically, they try to catch you on your heels and push you by threats. Sometimes, I find if there's somebody within a business getting an email done or, phishing emails, sending or resending banking information on a Friday at 4. That would be one thing. So they try to catch you at the end of the day when you're rushing out. Again, they try to throw in threats to harm you or your family. Sometimes embarrassment, notifying your loved ones that you did something. Those are oftentimes also tactics that they utilize. One with like the grandparent scam, they direct you to not get off the phone. So they try to keep you on the phone, try to be able to control who you talk to, what you say to them. They even go as far as like, hey, tell them this white lie. You're actually withdrawing money from your bank account for these reasons versus, actually send them money or, get them cards to send their way. So another one is, again, I mentioned this before, is that law enforcement is not going to call you. They might call you to take a report or return your phone call, but they're not going to call you and tell you have a warrant or have these additional fines and you have to pay this way. And again, cards, they want you to send money over via crypto or some cards from Walmart. No law enforcement, no entity is going to actually have you go and do that. So those would all be some major red flags.
Do you have any just real anonymous, like a real anonymous story that you could share just about a scam that you've experienced with someone that you've helped with?
Sure. There's a lot of examples because oftentimes those are the ones that I catch. So I don't typically take the initial report with frauds or scams, but I do the interworkings and the in-depth investigation. Oftentimes, frauds or scams take some very extensive paperwork and time and effort. So one major one would have been related to a phishing scam and email compromise, and so some individual at a business would have clicked on a link within their email. So one huge thing advising you not to do is do not click on links from emails that you don't know. So this entity, the scammer, they changed their email to look like another business that this individual was having business with. And so oftentimes you have to look very closely at everybody's email to make sure that they're often off by just one letter or one number. So this individual received this email on Friday at 4. Wanted to get out who she thought was the other business she was dealing with, requested their bank numbers, saying that they lost their banking information. They need to get their banking information again. So she resent the information, and ultimately the business was out, I believe, $50,000 to $70,000. And so in the back end of the investigation, so trying to figure out who actually was in charge of this fake email account, I go down a lot of money holes. So to look in the email is quite extensive. Typically it ended up overseas. So overseas, one thing to note, they don't honor our legal documents. Most oftentimes they don't. And in order to have the FBI take on the investigation, it has to be hundreds of thousands of dollars. So like 50 to 70,000 is a lot to me. That would, but to the FBI, they won't take it unless it's hundreds of thousands. So so you have this small entity trying to investigate all these phone calls. Everything ended up overseas, and unfortunately, the business wasn't able to get their money back. But a big loss, and just something to note: the clicking on the link, and make sure that you guys avoid that, and as well as doing anything in a rush on Friday at 4.
Yeah. And thinking about the email as well, it can be as little as like a period inside the email, or just a number or letter. Anthony, are there any challenges that you personally face just when prosecuting scams, especially when it comes to when the scammer is out of state or just out of the country?
Yeah. So once Kira does all that great work, and usually when she's gotten to the point that we have a target or a suspect, or we've got enough information to start doing warrants or subpoenas to banks to try to get records to find the trail of where this money went, because it's oftentimes online. Then the file will generally start to come to me, and I've got to decide if there's enough to prosecute, or if I can even figure out who we're prosecuting sometimes. And that's the next step before we go to court. Is now the detective and I are working together, and sometimes it's just figuring out in which court it should be. Almost always, especially for identity theft, we can pursue criminal charges where the victim is. So that would be here, even if the scammer is in another state or another country. Now, the difficulty with another country is that I can't get my hands on them, right? But if they are in another county or in another state, then there may be ways, warrants, criminal arrest warrants, things like that, in which we can try to get a hold of these people. And a lot of times, if they are local, or if the scam is of more of a local nature, then there might be someone here who's doing the bidding of someone somewhere else. Like, so there might be sort of the foot soldier person here who's going to the local treasurer's office and filing the car registration fraudulent car registration documents, and they're getting some kickbacks, but they're not the person who's benefiting from whatever stolen car or chopped up car or whatever. That's part of the actual scam, like where the actual profit for the scammer is. So we can maybe get a hold of them and prosecute them, or try to flip them for information to get up the chain. But that the challenges of that is that often that it gets over our local head, and we start to work with the state and federal partners. Getting, as you can imagine, when 60 Minutes says there's $10 billion in scams every year, that's too much for the FBI even to handle every case. And so, we refer a lot of things to the feds, and the feds take what they can. But often, if it's not tied to something interstate or something even larger, then they may not accept a referral. And so the case might stop. And that's some of the jurisdictional issues we run into. Also, just online tools can be very anonymous. We may get 2 or 3 hits back from a Facebook warrant, getting information saying, Facebook, give me your IP addresses. There's like a way to tie a physical address to somebody online. And that might lead us nowhere, or it might lead us out of the country. And there's ways that people hide their identity online too. And so that can sometimes be too hard for us to figure out. And then also, if the scam has gone on so long that the evidence is hard to actually find everything, like it's hard to find everywhere that the scammer has been, then it can also be like, well, what physical evidence do we actually still have? So keeping track of your bank records, keeping track of transactions that you make can be really important evidence for later. Bank records themselves may not disappear, but knowing what transactions are legitimate versus which ones aren't can be something that, as the victim, you're going to have to provide us that information. We're going to have to work with you to figure that out, and that can be a challenge too sometimes, because we all, make purchases that are legitimate online all the time too. And then underreporting is another one. People underreport, and so we may think we have 5 or 6 victims of this scam when actually there are many more, and that's because people are either ashamed or they never know. They just never realize that $50 or $200 or $500 was actually given to a scammer, and they just never really realized that they never received that service that they thought they were paying for, or that they overpaid for, or something like that. And so underreporting is also a serious hurdle to prosecutions. But we do try really to work with as many of the partners that we have. This last case Kira was talking about, mail fraud, in Jasper County, 2 people went to prison for combined 50 years. And they had warrants in other states as well. And they were stealing checks from people's mailboxes all over the county, and actually other places too, and washing checks and then cashing them for themselves. And the assistance that we got from the federal government was the U.S. Postal Inspector, and then our local law enforcement did almost all legwork. And those people were successfully able to prosecute them. And when they're out of prison in Iowa, they're going off to another state because they've got warrants there. So, there are success stories here, but it really does take a lot of work and a partnership with law enforcement.
How long did that take?
Thankfully, because they had some motivation, those defendants, and we caught a couple of really good breaks. I mean, we didn't think we were actually going to find them, but we did. Yeah, we figured they were gone, but we did find them, and so that took I don't know 3 months or so from start to finish. Maybe even a little faster.
Faster, I like them.
Yeah. Okay.
That feels quicker in my
yeah.
head.
Yeah. Quicker than normal, but again, we caught these people. They were. We got lucky, honestly. We got lucky.
Vicky, I guess, do you have any other just closing comments before we open it up to just Q&As to the audience?
Just be vigilant and take the preventative steps. A lot of us get our statements electronically. We're not getting the hard copy in the mail. Look at your bank statements, your investment statements. I mean, I've known people that said, oh my gosh, I've been charged $320 a month for the last 3 years. They had bought something online and unknowingly was in a subscription. You just really have to be vigilant and review all your information on a regular basis. And I think we've all said it, don't be embarrassed. There's nothing so urgent that you have to act on right now. Whether it's, for a limited time, just for the next couple of hours you can buy gold and do it online and, we'll get it all set up. Nothing has to be done right here, right now. Reach out to your trusted partner, whether it's, a family friend, family member, your financial advisor, whomever you really rely on, and bounce it off them.
Well, that's good. I guess we can open it up to Q&A now. If anyone has, any specific questions. Well, I saw Marty's hand first, so we can start there.
We keep hearing these advertisements about household theft, property theft, that they can get your name and go to the county and put your house in their name.
I'll answer the one on the phone number. They can spoof it. You can go and get an internet number and say, I want it to be from a 515 or a 319 area code. And easy. So, and it does. It gives you a false sense of security. Oh, this is a local number. I'm gonna answer it.
I had 20 of those calls yesterday.
Yeah.
That I don't answer.
Well, and hand in hand with that, my family is originally from South Central Iowa, but I grew up in Davenport, so my phone number for the longest time has been a 563 area code. And so usually, if I get a 563 number, I'm like, okay, this is a scam, probably, because everyone in Davenport I know, but it comes up with their name. I don't get calls generally anymore. I haven't lived in Davenport for 20 years. But I start now getting 641 numbers, and they're just as often a scam. And I'm baffled as to how that could be. But the truth is that almost all of the legitimate businesses we interact with as well, when it comes to retail and things like that, they track us. When we give our phone numbers for rewards programs or things like that, they take that, they bundle it together, because those reward programs are usually not run by the company themselves. They're run by some marketing company who then takes that, sells it to other people. And if we're lucky, they wash our personal data from it. But the thing is that they'll just start seeing trends, and then they can say, okay, this person is buying a lot, selling a lot in Jasper County or in a 641 area code. And then that might leak. That database might leak, and then scammers get it, and then they can spoof those numbers and think, okay, it's more reliable if they're going to answer a call from 641. Because I don't have every law enforcement officer's phone number in my phone by name, but I have to answer when they call. And so I answer just about every 641. 9 times out of 10 it's a scam. As soon as they get a person on the line, they log that, and now they're going to call 10 more times. So yeah. As for the home scam, I'm not quite sure how to answer that. I know, if you're a homeowner, and there are some exceptions, but if you're a homeowner, your information is listed on the county website for beacon. It's the recorder's information, and everybody's is mine is, and it's a nice tool for people in real estate and those kinds of things. But yeah, it's also a way for people to get a hold of certain information about you. But I wouldn't think it'd be so easy for someone to apply for a loan or something with just that information. There have to be forgery or fraud involved, and so it would be a crime. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but it would be a crime.
So that you're not seeing a lot of that out there.
No, I'm not seeing people who are like losing their homes because of someone pretending to be them and signing up for like new loans or things like that. It's not really something I'm seeing.
Sorry, I think I saw Shirley's hand next. Unless you have another comment.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I haven't taken on an investigation like that, and I would think that there's a lot of precautions that are put in order, you wouldn't be able to switch it into somebody else's name so easily. Not saying that it couldn't happen, but without me seeing the ins and outs of an investigation like that, that's nothing that's come up locally. And I think they hit it on the head with the phone numbers. You could spoof very easily. I have a text now number when I do undercover investigations, and so whenever I text somebody who my subject that I'm speaking with, I have a fake number too. So it's very easy to have local fake numbers. I'm originally from Utah, and I get phone calls from Utah, but everybody I know, they're saved in my phone, and so it's a common thing. I could go online right now, not using any law enforcement powers or privileges, and find each of you by your phone number, or by your name, and it'll list your phone number. So it's very easy to snag people's phone numbers and send out mass text to try and scam them into anything.
It says on her medical 8.5, conversation went on, and she said, would you give me your Medicare number? Foolishly, she gave her Medicare number. It went on, and then the person said, well, now that I've entered your information in the computer, I'm not going to send you a new card. She just realized the message and so Monday morning, I was having coffee at my house, and she was telling us about it. And while she was doing it, the same call came from another lady from my house. So it's coming around Monroe right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and one of you don't think about it until it's too late, but never provide any personal information, obviously. Yeah.
And she said I should just tell her the whole story.
Yeah. They know the right screws to turn on.
Right, and obviously they have tactics that they practice, and catching people on their heels. They talk about this over here, and then they ask you your personal information. They're going to throw it into the conversation. Obviously, if it was Medicare, they wouldn't be calling you and asking you for your number because they already have it. So I honestly I don't answer any phone numbers coming in that I don't already have saved. I wait until it goes to my voicemail. They leave a voicemail. I can see it and read it, and I block it immediately because that happens to everybody. Happens to me.
This mail, should I destroy it? Is it?
Yeah, I can't really answer that.
For the most part, shred it. There are scammers out there that do prey on widowers and try and send phony medical bills or, any outstanding things, thinking, they're going to say, oh, I better pay this debt. Just know really what your expenses are or costs that you've incurred, and just shred it, because a lot of it is fraud.
Sid?
How can we tell if a website is a secure website? I think you mentioned a secure website, and then making sure that it is the actual website for whatever company you're trying to find. So what should I be looking for on the browser to make sure that it's secure and it's the actual website I'm looking for?
Okay, to find the official website, you'll just want to Google it. If it's, Citibank, for example, it'll say official site. But when you click on that, to know if it's secure, up in the address bar, HTTP and the full address, there will be a little padlock to the very left of it. That is a secure site. So I don't, to the best of my knowledge,
Yeah, so I always, oftentimes scams happen because people find these websites and things are too good to be true. But it's as easy as doing some additional background looking into the site. So look at their address even, and you could Google Earth the address, zoom in. One of my last scams that I helped investigate, the address or the location of this seller was actually in a field in the middle of Georgia. So there was no actual building. And phone numbers, you could always look up phone numbers. I think the phone numbers, you could Google the phone numbers and it'll say this is a scam phone number. So just do some additional follow-up. Also, if you're taking out large amounts of money or sending large amounts of money from your bank to another bank, banks should also, they have some additional steps that they do before giving out loans or assisting with large amounts of money. So they also assist in that, but don't rely on them. I would just do the background myself.
I'm going to go Corky and then Teresa, and then I'm going to have to wrap it up. So we'll go Corky.
Well, it's not really a question.
Yep. Yeah.
I always answer, this is Detective Lazenby, and they always just like,
Should they call Medicare and tell them that?
absolutely. As soon as possible, I would call them the next day, the next hour, as soon as they realize that what they did, and then they can change it, cancel it, so nothing goes on to that number and card.
I think the first thing that they said was, we can have their new medical.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, one more, last one.
Well, real quick, I got scammed a while back, and they said, Ella Community Hospital. Now, I'm not from here, I've lived there 15 years, so I don't know everything. And I forgot it's not Ella Community Hospital. And my son kind of then got on the line, and we went through all this hullabaloo, and I guess it sort of went away, but it's back. Now, I know it's not community hospital now, so how do you get rid of that?
Are
I'm
they
stuck with it?
are they calling you? So they're calling you asking for money?
Right
Oh.
now.
Yeah, you can block it, report it to It'll keep on coming. So even every phone number that I block in my phone,
I get 15 now.
10, 15 a day, they change that number. They call from a different spoof number. So you can never stop it from happening. But what you can do is, come to these meetings and educate yourself on how not to fall victim of investing money or sending money to individuals that are obviously scammers. So you're going to keep on getting mail. You'll keep on getting phone calls, emails. It's never going to stop.
See, I completely forgot.
That's how sneaky they are. Yeah.
I guess one other comment I would have as well is if you could try putting your phone number on the do not call list. So if you just yeah. I have mine on there too. I still get scams, but it might be less than normal maybe if you have it on there. But yeah, we'll go ahead and just kind of wrap things up. Obviously, thank you guys for joining me today. And I think one comment that I would have, and I think I said this at a previous seminar as well, but one thing that scammers like to do is like get your emotions up, get your emotions high. And one thing I've said before is when your emotions are high, logic is low. So that's obviously one tactic that they're going to try to do is just get your emotions high and get the blood pumping, and something to just try to remember to keep in the back of your head. But so for next month's seminar, we're going to do one on navigating dementia, understanding, caring, and coping. So this is for it's basically for anyone that might have dementia or anyone that's caring for someone that has dementia, or if you know, family, friend, coworker, or whatever. It's going to be in regards to, how to, care for that person, and yeah, it'll just be kind of like this, a 101 dementia seminar, basically. So that one is actually, these are normally on the first Thursday of every month, but this one's going to be on Wednesday. So it's on Wednesday, July 2nd at 10 a.m. So it's instead of Thursday, it'll be the first Wednesday. Another item, if you want to be automatically signed up for the seminar for next month, just put your name tag in that clear bin back there, and my team will just go in and sign you up, and you'll get an email and a text message from me. It's not scam. saying that you're signed up for next month's seminar. And then, sorry, last thing, if you want to take just 30 seconds, a minute to just fill out the feedback forms, I read every one of those, and they overall just help me and my team improve these seminars. And yeah, I take them very seriously. And yeah, read all of them. And yeah, basically just helps shape the future of the series and kind of where we want to take it for future topics. So thank you again for everybody for coming, and have a good day.